I sat in my tiny room, hardly able to believe that my birthday had been forgotten. Juliana, I could understand. She never cared about me in the slightest. Her preferential treatment towards her own children had been a theme from the day she set foot into our house. But my father had raised me for 21 years, how could he forget? The doorbell rang, shattering the melancholy. Likely one of Juliana's mom friends, but I was surprised when my stepmother shouted down the hall. Margot, there's someone here to see you. She didn't sound happy. I wasn't supposed to have visitors to the house. I walked out into the dining room, where everyone was waiting. My father and stepmother stood next to each other, frowning at the visitor woman, currently sitting in one of the chairs. In the large archway leading to the hall were my stepsisters, chewing gum and smirking. I knew they couldn't wait for bad news to drop. My stepbrother was standing next to his mother, glaring at me with eyes that promised punishment for defying my parents' rules. Swallowing, I made my way over to the woman at the table. I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong house. I don't know you. I know you don't, the woman looked up at me with a smile. But I know you, Margot Abigail Thurn. She gave me a reassuring look. I'm Mariah Hawke, your mother's attorney. I'm here to discuss your inheritance, now that you're a legal adult. Inheritance? My father interjected. Olivia didn't have any inheritance. She was reliant on me. Indeed, Mariah glanced back at him, clearly unimpressed by his interjection. However, she looked back at me. Your maternal grandparents were quite well off. See, they lost their son a few years ago, and with your mother dead too, you're their last living relative. The only heir to their estate. I sat down, stunned. What did they leave me? I asked in a shaky voice. Mariah opened the folder and lifted the page, scanning it before replying. When they died, they had $247 million in various accounts, not including their multiple businesses, houses, investments, and shares in several top-level companies. You, she said, leaning on her arms and giving me a beaming smile, are a very wealthy young lady. It took me a few seconds to wrap my head around this. 200 million? Businesses? Houses? Houses. I could move out of my father's house and leave him and my awful stepfamily behind. Glancing at them, I saw their eyes shining with greed and I turned back to Mariah Hawke. You said they left houses? When can I move into one? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. My father came forward, leaving my stunned stepmother rooted to the spot, staring at the lawyer in disbelief. You've only just come of age, you need some time to adjust. Juliana came out of her trance. Yes. Don't be in such a hurry too. Shut up, I said, my fists clenched on the table as I stared at Juliana with hatred. For years now, you and your brats have picked on me, made me clean up after you, do your schoolwork and wash your clothes. When I don't follow your rules or do what you say, your son beats me, to which you turned a blind eye. Your daughter stole my things, spread rumors about me, and forced me to do their homework because they were too stupid to read anything more complicated than a shampoo bottle. All the grievances I had over the years came pouring out and I stood up. I cooked meals, went shopping, paid your kids' phone bills from money I earned myself, and still you never once said thank you. Instead, you took my bedroom and shoved me into a closet like a dirty secret, parading your little family around like you're perfect. And you, I turned my face to my shocked father. Let it happen. You even forgot my birthday. What kind of father are you? I looked at Mariah, who looked calm. Can I move in now? I asked. Yes, of course. She closed the file. Do you need a moment to pack anything? I gave a bitter laugh. Pack? Pack what? I have nothing but a handful of clothes. I can get replacements. Mariah nodded and stood up, turning to my father and handing him an envelope. Also, Mr. Thurn, the Grace estate is suing you for misappropriation of child support funds. The money sent to you by the estate was to help with the living costs of your daughter. Clearly you haven't provided adequate care to Miss Margot here, and I shall be reporting you to the APM as well. She turned to me. Let's get you out of here, sweetie. One last thing, I turned to them, looking each of them in the eyes. They all looked like they'd been hit with a sledgehammer and not quite figured that out yet. I don't want to see any of you again. I will be changing my name to my mother's and will never help you with anything. I don't care if you're sick, dying, dead, or homeless. You are not my family. Family doesn't do what you did. I hope you all rot. With that I turned and left with Mariah, promising to myself to never return.
I pulled up outside the double doors of the supermarket and grabbed the bottle of bleach. However, when I stepped out, the pungent smell of cleaning products hit my nose. Someone had already splashed bleach around the doors. Putting the bleach back in the bus, I locked the door and stepped inside the supermarket. It was silent, almost eerily so. I walked past the checkouts, keeping my eyes peeled for zombies as I made my way towards the trolley bay. I had almost reached them when I heard multiple footsteps approaching quickly. I turned and raised the machete only to find 3 children standing there, looking scared. I lowered the blade immediately. The oldest one looked about 13 or 14 and was holding a small baby, wrapped in blankets sold by this very store. Behind him was a boy of about 8, scrawny and tired-looking, staring at me with large brown eyes, filled with both fear and hope. "Who are you guys?" I asked, approaching them. "What are you doing here? Where are your parents?" The older boy responded, "Mother told us to wait here for her while she went and got the car. She didn't come back, so we hid upstairs in the offices. We heard on the daybreak radio that zombies don't like bleach, so I tipped some out by the door." Before I could respond, a woman with pink hair ran in, holding the hand of a little girl who looked about 5. "Do you have a safe place?" She hurried over to us, then looked at the children with shock. "Who are you?" I asked suspiciously. "My name's Jenny and this is Margot." She glanced down at the little girl. "We were hiding across the road in an apartment above the pharmacy. Please tell me you can get us out of here." Everyone was staring at me with hope. Even the baby looked up at me with her dark eyes. Well. Sure, I responded, but I need some medical supplies, so we might as well gather what we can before other people find out this place is still untouched. The main horde is 2 blocks south of here, moving parallel. That's why, Jenny told me, and I sucked in a breath. "Then let's get moving," I said quickly. "Here, give me the baby, I'll take her with me as I get the medical stuff. Jenny, you go get non-perishables. Noodles, canned anything, pasta, jarred goods, powdered soup, that kind of thing." Jenny nodded. I pointed at the teenager. "What's your name?" "Ken," he responded as he handed over the baby. "And this is my neighbor's baby, Molly." "Right, Ken, I'll need you to go get baby supplies. Diapers, wipes, formula, cream, soap, blankets, bottles, anything you can fit into the trolley, okay?" "Okay," Ken looked determined. I looked at the boy behind him. "That's Robert, Molly's brother," Ken told me. "Robert, I have a special job for you and Margot, okay?" I pointed to the candy section, visible from the checkouts. "Grab as much candy as you can. Chocolate, boiled sweets, gummy lollies, as much as you can." Robert's eyes went huge. "You want us to grab candy? Can you do that?" I asked, and both of them nodded. "Right, 5 minutes, then we beat it. We don't want to run into the main horde." Everyone grabbed at trolley except Margot, who followed Robert to the candy section. The baby supplies were in the same aisle as medical supplies, supplements, feminine hygiene products and soap. I grabbed bottles of vitamins, first aid supplies such as bandages, ointments and pain medications. The trolley was large and the supplies were small, so I grabbed some sanitary products as well just in case before grabbing some extra baby supplies. 5 minutes later we met at the front and I checked to make sure the coast was clear. Seeing nothing, I unlocked the minibus. With supplies gathered, we quickly tossed everything into the minibus and pushed the trolleys in direction of the doors. Even though everything was mixed up and tossed all over the floor and seats, unpacking wouldn't be too difficult in the safety of the farm. I ushered the children into the bus, asking Jenny to hold Molly since we didn't have a car seat. Ken sat up front with me. "So where are we going?" he asked me now. "I live on a farm just outside the city," I told him. "It's called Woodstack." "Woodstack?" He looked at me. My grandparents had a sense of humor, I admitted, as I drove around abandoned cars, taking the same way back. "Look!" Robert cried from the back seat as we slowly passed through an intersection, the traffic lights blinking randomly. Glancing over, I got a brief look at what was likely the main horde, about 2 blocks away, down a slight slope. "My gods," Jenny whispered in shock. "There has to be hundreds of thousands of them."
"What is it?" Moira asked, following my gaze. "Isn't that Alexia White? Of the White family? She has a son, Alan or something." "Albert," I corrected, the name threatened to bring my breakfast back up. "Albert White. I heard they're both controlling perfectionists." My best friend looked at me with amazement. "Where did you hear that?" "I overheard some people talking about them in a restaurant," I lied. I couldn't tell her the truth, she'd think I'd gone mad. "Okay, then let's avoid them," Moira suggested. "Avoid who?" A voice spoke behind us, making me break out into a cold sweat. How many times did I hear that voice criticize me in everything? He'd never yelled, not once. But his cold calm was even worse, the disdain, the ruthlessness. I'd never forget it. I didn't answer Albert, fearing I would throw up if I opened my mouth.
Excuse me, Moira said in an outraged tone. Do you make a habit of eavesdropping on other people's conversations? Is that how you pick up girls? By butting into their private talks? I was talking to my friend, not you. Go away, whoever you are. She pulled me away, muttering about rude people. Once we left them behind in the crowd, I pulled on her arm. That was Albert White. I know, she said indifferently. Don't care. Let's just go pick a university. Besides, me not knowing who he is hurt his pride more than anything else I could have said. Also, he has a stupid name, he sounds like an old man. I couldn't help but laugh, feeling much lighter. I wouldn't have to put up with Albert in this life, and it made me very happy. I applied to Spencer Ridge and shook off the very persistent representative from Old Bay Central, who was all but begging me to come to his university. I remembered from my last life that the Old Bay Central representatives got a bonus for every student in the country's top 20 they successfully signed up. All unofficial, of course, such tactics were considered impolite. I ended up telling him firmly that if he persisted in badgering me, I would inform his school and lay a complaint with the administration. I shook my head as he slunk away looking dejected and resentful. Having finished early, I decided to do a bit of shopping with Moira. It was so nice just to spend a few hours with her, shopping, eating, talking, all the things Albert hadn't allowed me to do with my old friends. All the friends I had were really his friends' wives and girlfriends, told to keep an eye on me and not let me eat or drink anything Albert deemed inappropriate. I was only allowed to go shopping with my mother-in-law, so she could vet all my clothes, jewelry and accessories. He said that the lady of the White family had to be absolutely perfect in every way, and he and his mother knew what they were doing and to just follow her lead and not make things difficult for them. Feeling rebellious, I brought a high-neck sleeveless dress in royal blue, the skirt falling to my knees. I had my brown hair styled in luxurious waves, leaving it down on my shoulders. I finished off the look with a silver bracelet and blue strappy high heels. All the things Albert hated: short dresses, hair down, exposed toes and silver jewelry. By a stroke of bad luck we spotted Albert and Alexia White in the car park as we exited. Albert's eyes instantly fell on me, the look on his face disapproving. In unspoken agreement, Moira and I walked past the Whites, not even sparing them a glance as we pretended to be preoccupied with our bags. But Albert stopped us. He stepped in front of us. Hello again. I believe we met briefly at the celebration center. I wanted to apologize for my eavesdropping. I didn't mean to. He gave us a smile that didn't completely erase the disapproval in his eyes as he focused on me. Let me buy you lunch to make up for it. I felt sick. I wanted to ask if I would be able to choose what I ate this time, but I restrained myself. That was the old me, still angry at his control. No thank you, we've already eaten. How about a coffee then? His mother interjected, stepping forward. We could have a nice chat. Perhaps I can give you girls some career advice. Like her son, her smile didn't meet her eyes either. It's too hot for coffee, and we have things to do, I replied coolly. No way was I going anywhere with these two. Why did they have to show up in my life? Rotten potatoes. Well, maybe next time. Albert kept up his smile. Then he looked at the silver bracelet on my wrist. I think you'd suit gold much better. He clearly couldn't help himself. I don't like gold, it looks tacky, I replied. The only gold I'll ever wear are my wedding rings. In that very moment, I knew what I had to do. Turning away from the romantic scene of Samson and Callie in the garden, I headed out the front door and onto the street where I walked and walked, trying to calm myself down. The plan in my mind caused my anxiety to flare and I put my hand in my pocket to grab the old coin there. Years ago, when my anxiety first began to manifest, my father had given me an old out-of-circulation coin and told me whenever I started feeling anxious, to rub my thumb over the coin and focus on the rough metallic feel of it. He meant for it to help ground me, and somehow it did, more from his attempt to help me than anything else. The coin brought back wonderful memories of my father, and I began to feel much better. I realized I had walked a few blocks and quickly hailed a passing cab, sliding into the back seat and telling the driver to take me to the airport. I needed to get out of here and as far away as I could. I was searching through flights leaving soon when a message popped up from Samson. Garnet, can you please stop having your people harass Callie? It's keeping her awake at night and she's tired and scared. You're being ridiculous. What people? I wasn't having anyone harass Callie, and I don't know why he was admonishing me for such a thing. Most likely, Callie organized it herself, just so Samson could feel sorry for her and get mad at me. I swiped away the message without replying and continued booking a flight out of the country. However, my anxiety flared again and I took deep breaths trying to calm myself down. I gripped the door handle, rubbing my thumb over the rough cheap plastic while I listened to the song on the radio, trying to remember the lyrics to the song and who sung it. I read all the signs around me, like the one for pricing. I found out that soiling a cab would add an extra $200 to your fare. Eventually, my heart calmed down enough for me to relax into the seat. I was still terrified at what I was about to do, fearing that Samson would figure it out before I could pull it off. But this was something I had to do. Not just for my sake, but for my father's. Clearing the central city traffic, the cab whizzed smoothly down the freeway towards the airport. Taking the cab was not my ideal way to get there, but with Samson having spies and my people it was the safest. Since I didn't take my driver, no one could report where I had gone. The cabbie wished me a good flight and I gave him a good tip, thanking him for getting me here on time. The last-minute plane ticket out of the country was waiting for me at the service desk, where I presented my passport and ticket confirmation email before being led to the gate where boarding was about to begin. I thanked my lucky stars that I had lost my driver's license and had brought my passport with me instead. Perhaps the god of luck was looking out for me? While I was waiting, I brought some supplies, including a new laptop and SIM card for my phone. I took out my SIM card and dropped it into the nearby rubbish bin. It felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders and I hummed as I put in the new one, immediately blocking Samson and Callie everywhere. I also blocked Nathaniel, that little skunk. Good riddance. As I sat in the first-class seat, staring out the window at the city as it became smaller and smaller before vanishing behind the clouds. I emailed I.O., telling him where I was and asking him to take care of the company. "Don't worry about a thing, Miss Garnett," he messaged back. "Call me when you get to your hotel so I know you're safe and we'll discuss things." I leaned back in my chair, feeling safe at last, the relief palpable. It would be impossible for Samson and Callie to manipulate me if I wasn't around to manipulate.
Looking out the window of the plane at the city I had grown up in, I didn't feel any real emotion. I was only returning to the city out of duty, both to my father and the company I was to inherit, something Garnet could never do. Father had been in a coma for 2 years now, but apparently there were signs of improvement in his brain waves, leading the doctors to believe that he may just wake up soon. As I stepped into the terminal, I spotted our family's personal assistant, I.O., waiting for me. "Sir," he greeted, falling into step beside me. "How was the flight?" "Uneventful," I responded. "Unless you count an overweight and balding man in his 40s, stripping off his shirt to flirt with the young 20-something model in the seat in front of me." I.O. grimaced, wrinkling his nose. "And how did that go down?" "About as well as one would expect. He was warned to sit down and denied any more alcohol. Also, the model was asleep, you just couldn't tell behind her sunglasses," I said, stepping outside into the hot summer sunshine. I.O. led me to the car where a new driver waited. "Mr. Garrett," he greeted. "Where would you like to go first?" "Straight to the office. I'll visit my father afterward, then head to the house," I informed him as we all got in. Once we were on our way, I turned to I.O. "How did it go?" I.O. didn't look up from his phone. "Samson has no more spies within your people. I've managed to either fire them or have them reassigned." He glanced over his phone at me. "He will bother you about Miss Garnett. Been searching all over the city, looking for his so-called fiancée, although I don't recall there ever being a marriage agreement." "Because there wasn't," I replied. "He was too busy sniffing at Callie. But as for him..." I waved a dismissive hand. "Let him try to make trouble. I have plans on how to deal with him if he tries." Arriving at the company, I headed straight to the CEO's office, currently unused. People stared as I passed, whispering to each other about me. "Who is that?" someone asked their coworker. "That's our acting CEO, Garrett Von Rowe," came the reply. "Mr. Von Rowe's only son and heir to the company." I ignored the comments, my focus my father's office, I.O. right behind me. "The department heads are waiting in the CEO's conference room," he told me. "Good," I replied. "Let's get this over with."